We talk to the legends of the creative and entertainment industries. We talk to those on the rise. Lance Dean Anthony Nielsen asks about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. This is Outcast Creative, and this is Industry Interviews.
Hello. Well, tonight is quite a special edition of Industry Interviews because I'm going to have the pleasure of interviewing somebody who I've been connected with for over 10 years. We've sort of been in each other's orbit in the industry, as you are. Sometimes I've followed his work since I saw him in the film Mask with Cher all the way back, I think in 1985 that was, the wonderful Lawrence Monoson. Before I bring Lawrence in, we're going to just watch a couple of quick clips, very short clips of some of his work. So do check this out. Hopefully I won't get flagged for copyright as per usual.
I figure I'm nailing this guy. I'll be home by 8. So there we are, the middle of nowhere. He stops the car. He takes out a 380, puts it right in my face. Oh, God. So now I got a 380 shoved in one eye, and all I can see with the other is this big unibrow. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy has made me. Any second, a chunk of metal is going to interrupt my brain circuitry. 666.
Excuse me?
That is my room number. That's when I called the public health department. When I saw what room they put me in. Nobody listened to me. Nobody listens in this place!
I'll listen to you. That's why I'm here.
It all started with a barbecue. It was in the summer of 1980. We had it in our backyard, and it was just me and my lover and a gay couple from up the street. Now, one of them died on October 6th, 1981. And one died on February 6th, 1982. And the other one died on March 6th, 1982. There are 3 6s. You see?
Yes. Yes, now all of them died of this new disease?
There are 3 6s. There are 3 6s, so I...
Do you see any of the names of those men on this list?
October 6th. It's 81. February 6th. It's 82. And March 6th. 82. Oh. Wait.
Good. Now, you had sex with all 3 of these men?
Can you hear that?
What?
Do you hear that? Dun, 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 dun. The music. Dun, it's playing upside down. Which instead of backwards means I'm number 4 on the list. I'm number 4 and 2 makes wait. Would you tell me the absolute truth? Would you? No matter how terrifying that may be?
I'll try to.
Does it make a difference if I was cremated?
I don't understand. I'm sorry.
Oh, I've got to tell you, every time I watch that scene, which is from And the Band Played On, which is an amazing film, if you haven't seen it, I start welling up because brings back so many memories for me, including that of my late cousin who passed of HIV related illness in 1991. Let me bring in my guest, Lawrence Monoson, who you were with the wonderful Richard Masur in that scene.
Yes, he was actually wonderful.
Yeah, he's a sort of fantastic character actor that crops up in absolutely everything. Before I jump into my usual standard questions, and thank you so much for coming on, Lawrence. I know how busy you are. What was Richard like to work with?
Actually, amazing. You know, I know people say that a lot, and actually watching that scene reminds me of something he did that was quite a lesson for me. Was you know, especially at that time in my life, I was extremely committed to a certain kind of authenticity in my work. And what I mean by that is it was a goal, not always attainable, but to truly be sort of in the throes of the character's struggle and their experience. And I did a lot of preparation work to be there. And it was so interesting that, you know, the scene took an entire day to shoot. And during the whole morning, the entire morning, the hours, I was kind of really just in it, just flowing and effortless. And the pain and the emotion was just there. I wasn't doing anything. It was doing me, you know? And lunch came, and I decided to stay in the hospital room to make sure that or to try to hold on to that kind of flow. And of course, after lunch, everybody came back and it was gone. The flow was gone.
Right.
And I started the scene. We needed to do other things in the scene. And I was quite a young actor at the time. And I became very upset. I felt like I was failing and like I was ruining the work and doing a bad job. And Richard, did this beautiful thing. He said, hold on a second. He said, come with me. And we went outside. And he said, Lawrence, he said, you're a very well-trained actor. And he said, and that's what you need to do now. You need to act. And he said, yes, this morning you were, clocked into sort of the spirits, that come sometimes when you're working. And he said, but now you act, you do your job. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. And I went back and we did it. And it felt different, on the inside, because it wasn't, this beyond consciousness kind of work. But
sure.
But he's right. Like, we're trained actors, and sometimes you have to go and act. Anyway, it was a huge lesson for me. Just that one doesn't need to be totally dependent on being sort of taken completely by. That's an amazing experience when it happens, and it's absolutely fine to work without that.
Well, I mean, I'm going to come back to on and the band played on. I don't want to jump around too much in the chronology. So let me, before we do go back to that in your earlier work, let me ask you my usual quick fire questions that I ask all my guests, because I like to get a sense of what kind of cultural upbringing you had, where films and media and television and that kind of thing were concerned, and sort of your preferences. Do you remember when you were young what the first movie was you ever saw on the silver screen?
Bonnie and Clyde.
Oh, with the one with Gene Hackman and
Warren Beatty.
Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. Yeah.
My very, very appropriate Aunt Marilyn took me to see Bonnie and Clyde when I was 9. So,
and that's quite a violent, gory film for the time as well. Was
yes, it was
pretty up there. Yeah, especially the ending. What was the last movie you saw at the cinema?
Oh, I just saw the Shyamalan film, Trap.
Oh, okay. Yep. Another one. We were talking about it on the channel on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Do you have an American actor or actress that you'd like to work with who you haven't worked with yet?
Yes, I do.
I mean, one that immediately comes to mind that's kind of on your wish list of I'd love to do a scene with,
Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep. She is fantastic. Do you have a favorite movie that you watch at least once a year, and if so, what?
No, but I love to land. I love to land on The Godfather part two.
Just part two, not the first one.
No, the both. Somehow the second one I feel more held. I don't know. I love them.
If I put the first one on, I've got to watch the second one straight after.
Yeah,
I
mean, sometimes when it comes on, and I'm sort of just stunned into like, wow, movies.
Last of these quick questions. Do you have, since the year 2020, a favorite TV drama series? Not one that you've been in, but one that you've seen where you've gone, oh, yeah, that's quite special.
Succession.
It's a great show with just fantastic dialogue, and actually, my last guest said exactly the same.
Oh, and Industry. Oh God, it's fucking dope. It's another one. It's an HBO show. It's insane.
Is that the show that's based on the French show of the same?
It takes place in the UK. It's in London, and it's about trading.
Oh no, I know the one you mean.
They're just fucking bananas. They're insane.
Yeah, I've seen I think the first 6 episodes.
Season 2 actually comes on Sunday on August 11th.
Right, it got a second season. Okay. Quick message from Dan Candy here for you. Lawrence, the ending of The Last American Virgin was one of the most traumatic moments of my youth. You played the hell out of that character. Well done, sir.
I'm very sorry, Dan. I sincerely hope you've recovered. But Dan, I just want to say something, Dan. I hear you, man, and it's like the beauty of that movie, and this all goes to Bo, and we'll go there, Lance. Just brought it up, and the wonderfulness of what Boaz did is there's a generation of young men, feeling that kind of alienation and love, and that's why this movie from 5,000 years ago is still sticking around. It touches people's psychology,
Yeah. Well, we'll come on to that shortly, because I guess my sort of next question is really, where did it all start for you? Did you have a particular mentor character, a teacher, or how did you get the acting bug, and where did you first dip your toe?
I think I was born with it for real. I think that based on my particular upbringing and family dynamics and my own personal story, that it somehow became a construct in my head that acting and success would save me and would be a repository for all that I was feeling that certainly had no place in the world that I was growing up in, so it's somehow targeted on that. That was the answer. Oh, and
where did you actually grow up?
In Yonkers, New York. I was born in Manhattan, but I grew up in Yonkers.
Right. Okay. And sort of how old were you when you made? I assume at some point you shifted to California.
Yeah. So what happened was, by the age of already 10 and 11, I was doing like little commercials and NYU student films and very little things. I actually did a commercial with Carl Ballantyne. Anyway, so I decided that California was the place for me. So my mother and I came out here when I was 12 for vacation for a week or so. And I managed to somehow get myself an audition with the Herb Tannen Agency, who at that time was actually a pretty major agency, especially for kids.
Yeah, they were one of they were one of the big ones. They represented a lot of the kind of like the pseudo Disney kids, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got in, they liked what I did, and they said, if you move to California, we'll sign you. And I said, cool. And I told my mom I'm moving to California. And she was like, you know, and somehow my mother, being my mother, found a way for us to move to California of 6, 7, 8 months later or something.
Right.
So yeah, it was an interesting times.
How did you find the cultural shift between New York and California? Because there's a great line in that fantastic song, Always Wear Sunscreen. Live in New York once, but leave before it makes you too hard. Live in California once, but leave before it makes you too soft.
Yeah.
Is there any truth in that analogy?
It was a pretty big cultural shock. I come from a lower middle class, I don't know, family we didn't have money. And when we came out here, we ended up living in an area of the San Fernando Valley, Encino, which was actually quite moneyed. My aunt and uncle had a house way up the street from like Michael Jackson's family. So I was pretty unsettled by just the greenery and the wealth. And then I went to Portola Junior High School, and I think was called faggot every single day for about 2 years, and kind of tortured by a bunch of these kids.
This was when you were how old?
12.
And I mean, were you out about your sexuality at that time, or was this just something they assumed, or what?
Well, dear God, no, I was not out. I was 12, and you know, I was completely at that time still, totally dedicated, obviously, to the career.
Mm-hmm.
That was why I was there, and I was going on auditions. So no, they were just bullies. They were just the classic archetypal cruel bullies. So,
Right.
But wait, to answer your question though, yeah, so I found it to be, I think being at the age of 12 and then suddenly hanging out with these kids that had money and, parents drove all the Mercedes, and yeah, it was a big culture shock. It was a different world. It was a bit like moving from, Yonkers to Beverly Hills 90210. And you're just like, what?
Which, funnily enough, you would have a part in an episode, which we'll
a couple of episodes,
which we'll come on to. And rest in peace, Shannon Doherty, who not long passed away. So you're in California. You've got an agent. You've got one of the best sort of representations at that time for child actors, young actors, shall we say? What happened then? Because you did some commercials, and then I think your first credit before Last American Virgin was an episode of Hello, Larry. Do you want to sort of just tell us how that came about?
Sure. So that was my very, very first TV show, Hello, Larry, with Kim Richards, who I love, and Eve Graham.
Kim Richards, who was in the movie Tough Turf.
Kim Richards,
yeah, my God, I love Kim Richards, man.
She was a huge child star.
Yeah, because she was in Return to Witch Mountain. Was that her?
Yeah, and then years later, she became one of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
That's right. Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I did that show, and Eve Branstein cast that show, and I've always had a love for that casting director because she gave me that first part. And yeah, I just remember, I'm seeing a picture in my head on this dressing room door of 3 names on tape with a little black magic marker, Lawrence Monoson. And it was amazing. It was really exciting.
So I will confess, I haven't seen an episode of Hello, Larry. Is that like a half-hour kind of sitcom, or
give
us the idea?
It's really okay for you not to see it, Lance. It starred McLean Stevenson, who was, I think, a pretty big star back then. I don't remember.
I recognize McLean for sure.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was about. I think I'm not gonna. I don't know.
But how big was your role, and you know, what was that like being on a TV sort of series set for the first time?
You're asking too much for these brain cells to.
Okay, as it was 1979, I'll move on.
I'm sorry, it's just a little too far back.
Well, I can imagine it was, you know, probably the usual thing. You were probably nervous and excited and all the rest of it at the same time, you know.
I was very excited.
So between that and The Last American Virgin, which is the first thing that I would say, I suppose, got you noticed, were you doing other commercials, or what was happening in that interim period?
Yeah, so actually a lot. So it was interesting because my mom had a business when we came out here. And so I was very much on my own. And it was an interesting experience because I would have to take like 3 and 4 buses to get to auditions. And so, you know, I was like, it was an interesting time because I'm this young kid, right? And I'm dealing with my own, what we all deal with as young teenagers, and also dealing with kind of the really challenging situation at school. And then having auditions. And I felt a lot of pressure from the auditions because of the situation of moving from New York to California, kind of with me in the forefront as far as the acting career. And so as this went on, you know, I started to get close to a lot of jobs. You know, that's what happens when you audition. And as
Sure.
you get better, you go on callbacks and then more callbacks, and maybe they put you on hold. But during that time, I did get this 2-part episode of Different Strokes, which was cool. And then, do you want me to lead up to Virgin, or do you want me to stop and you're going to ask another question?
No, carry on.
So the year before I got Virgin, I was starting to get a lot, but then I would lose it because I wasn't 18. You know, the labor laws.
Yeah, because you could only work so many hours. I understand.
Right. And so for an entire year, because I'd started studying at that time with Milton Katselas, which is a really interesting story. He's one of the world, great teachers.
Yeah, it's famous acting coach. Had a studio out in Los Angeles.
The Beverly Hills Playhouse. Yeah. And, you know, Milton, I was in a class with like Michelle Pfeiffer and Tom Selleck and George Clooney and Miguel Ferrer and
they were all in your class.
Yeah, it was.
That is nuts.
It was Tom Selleck. I said that. It was amazing. It was unbelievable. And I was 15 years old, and Milton had seen me do a scene at the Beverly Hills Playhouse with the teacher Terry Jastrow, and he invited me into his class. And he said, "You're the youngest person that's ever been invited to study with me." And so I was 15 years old. Right. I'm studying with all these people. Anyway, point is I started to really actually know what I was doing as an actor. And Milton used to have this brilliant saying. He would say, "Don't look at it as an audition. It's not. It's an opportunity to act, to do your thing. It's an opportunity to do your craft, your work." Yeah. And I really, it is.
Good advice. Very good advice.
I took that on and I started booking. Well, let me rephrase. I started getting work, and then I would lose it because of the age. And that started to, can you imagine how
upset
worthless that is?
Yeah.
So then Virgin came up, and I have a funny story as far as what happened. I don't know if you want me to tell it now.
Well, we're going into that next, so please do.
So what happened was, at that time, there was Last American Virgin being cast, and the role of Gary, who I played, the Last American Virgin, was already cast. But they could not find the actor to play the large guy. And so they just opened it up to just anything, any interesting ideas that they could see. So I went in and I read, I don't remember what sides I read, and Boaz was there, Boaz Davidson, the director. And as soon as Boaz saw me after I did the first scene, he said, it's great. He was like, take a look at these sides and come back in. And they were the sides for Gary, the title role guy. I went back in and I did the scenes, and he was like, can you stay here? And I was like, yeah. And then he went and he got Menachem Golan, who was the owner of Canon, and
yeah. My God, I forgot they were behind it. Yeah.
Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus, and they came in and they saw me, and it went on for a while, and then they said to me, literally, that in that day, they're like, well, we want you to do the part. We want you to play this role, but we need to make sure that you're 18. So can you just show us your driver's license? And I was like, well, I said, well, I didn't drive here. A friend of mine drove me, and they're like, okay, so you have to come back by, 5 o'clock or whatever to show your ID. And I was like, okay, yeah, I will. So I left there. I don't remember a lot in my life. I really remember this. I remember it was 6464 Sunset Boulevard, which was the Canon offices. And I ran down to the garage, and there was a payphone. This was when there were payphones.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Does anybody out there remember payphone?
I'm sure we do. Yeah.
So anyway, I picked up the phone and I called my mother at work, and I was like, Mom, and I'm like, I started, I got this movie, but I am not 18. I have to. She was like, honey, don't worry, come here. My mother. I mean, you just had to know my mother. So I was like, okay. So I go to my mother's office, and my mother's there, and she's assembled a couple of people, and they're dicing and slicing letters and numbers and phony driver's licenses. And they put it together, and they put together this totally fraudulent driver's license and birth certificate. She went all the way. She did a phony birth certificate as well. And she was like, here we go. And so my mom and I went back to Canon and showed them this thing. I'm quite sure they knew that it was completely bogus. And they said, well, you got the part. And I think we actually started that Monday. Because, like I said, the dude it was already cast, my role. And
did you ever find out what happened to the original actor then?
Yeah.
I mean, why did they switch you over? Was it just they thought you were better, or was there a reason they were already getting?
I think there are two reasons. I do think they thought I was better. Sorry. But there is another reason, which is, as you probably know, The Last American Virgin is... Boaz did this film in Israel originally, and it was called Lemon Popsicle.
Lemon Popsicle, that's right, yeah.
And it's the biggest Israeli hits in Israel, I think, in Israeli history. I don't know if it's changed. That's the way it used to be. And if you look at Lemon Popsicle, I look uncannily, or did back then, like the young man who played the role.
I can see that.
Remember that Virgin and Popsicle is totally autobiographical for Boaz. And so I think when Boaz saw me, it was just like, oh my God, there I am again. And I just felt, I think he felt that this is the person who has to play this role. And yeah, it was really horrible for the young actor that was cast and then got let go. But yeah,
that's the movie business. So I know this was a long time ago, and if you can't remember, that's fine. But do you know, like you said, you got this, I guess, on the Friday. You were already filming on the Monday. Do you know roughly how many weeks shooting this was?
A month.
It was a month. And did you get any kind of like rehearsal or read through, or was it was it the Golan and Globus machine? Was it, right, let's go in, 2 takes, next?
It wasn't. It wasn't. No, I didn't get a lot of rehearsal, but like I said, that moment, the moment I left, I was on the phone with my, acting coach, and I mean, I worked, 20 hours a day on breaking the script and all the things that you try and do as an actor. And as far as it being a machine, no, I mean, sure, we didn't do 50 takes, but Boaz, I mean, this is a very personal movie for Boaz, and Boaz is a really good filmmaker, like not a joke, and he knew what he was doing, and so even though it was fast, it was good, and yeah, and
So it was a good experience for you, good positive first experience, big lead role. I one of the things that stuck out for me when I first saw the film, and I watched it again recently in preparation for this, is you have great chemistry with your co-stars. Did that come naturally, or did you guys get to kind of meet and hang out beforehand, or was the first time you met them on the set? Or
no, I think we hung out. I want to just say one interesting thing about getting a big role as a young actor.
sure,
I'd never done that before, and I didn't know anything about pacing or about the big differences between wide shots and two shots and close-ups, and so I was working, like revving my engine 16 hours a day unnecessarily. Like I didn't cognize yet that you
yeah,
don't need to really be crying in a real wide shot as much as like when it's here, and then you really want it to be as pure as possible. So that was pretty exhausting, was learning the mechanisms and the choreography of a set and of camera and working
yeah.
with the camera. But that was really fascinating to learn. As far as the chemistry, yeah, I think everybody was amazing.
Because I think you're still in touch with Diane Franklin. You said you heard from her today. So, and she's appeared in quite a few. I guess what you call them. This is like a cult movie, like Bill and Ted's a cult movie. This is another cult movie. Better Off
Yeah.
Dead's another cult movie. They all come with their own very dedicated fan base. I mean, you must have had people writing to you about this film over the years.
I get fan mail still every week from I don't quite get it. I mean, it's beautiful, but yeah, still just all the time. It's funny. It's great.
Well, it's the wonder of the cinema and narrative, and I mean, different films touch people in different ways. Sometimes in ways the filmmakers don't even expect. So moving on from Last American Virgin, that obviously got you noticed. At the time, it was a pretty decent success. Did you get a lot of offers off the back of it straight away, or talk us through the immediate aftermath of the effect of the film?
Let's see. I'm trying to decide how honest to be.
Well, be honest. Honest is good, because I it's often people get a movie and they think loads of things are going to come in, but they don't, or it's still just back on the cattle calls.
No, actually, a lot happened. I ended up signing with William Morris Agency, which is obviously one of the
Yeah,
agents in the world, and I was having big meetings with a lot of people, and yeah, Virgin was a pretty big hit, and I was fortunate enough to get some nice reviews. And what happened, though, almost as powerfully as what was happening in the industry, is then what's happening in my own psychology. So, in life, there's always kind of the external and the interior, right?
sure.
And so, even though something wonderful may be happening on the outside, it's then a mirror as far as your inside of, are you up for this? Can you now handle positive feedback? Do you feel good enough to be a star, to be successful? And I didn't. I had a lot of inner lack of self-strength, and that became, very revealed to me through being able to own the positive that was coming in my life.
So, would it be fair to say that you went through what a lot of people went through, which was you felt like a bit of a fraud sort of thing? Everybody has that, can have that attack of you know, suddenly they've got success, but they feel like they haven't properly earned it. But that's just a perception that they have. You know, that the reality is they probably have earned it, but somehow they still feel like they're faking it. I mean, that's quite common with actors, I think.
I think that's part of it. I also think, though, in my case and in other people, it had more sort of specific energy around being gay.
Okay.
And
yeah, and this is the 80s we're talking about in the film industry. That's not a great time to disclose that to people like casting directors and stuff, I would imagine.
No, it's unacceptable. I mean,
right.
It's not even a possibility. And so there was an immediate kind of terror on my part about hiding who I was, and who I was even still learning about. I was just 17.
Right.
I was just discovering sort of my own sort of idea of sexuality, and then knowing that I couldn't be who I was, it fucks with your head in such an unbelievably deep level when you're still trying to form as a young man and still try to get over whatever shame you've absorbed from your childhood, being a gay young man and boy, and then suddenly having the good fortune of getting a little bit of success as an actor, and then wanting this thing so much, success, and then feeling like the very truth of who you are threatens the thing that you want more than anything in the world. I mean,
yeah, because I mean, I guess the Last American Virgin, in a way, kind of presented you as a sort of typical, good-looking, nerdy pin-up for young girls. That, you know, and that's what casting directors would have been thinking. Dan's just made an interesting observation. A young Lawrence has a Ralph Macchio vibe. He wonders if casting directors had them going out for the same parts. Did you go up for any castings that Ralph was at?
Tons. I mean, it was actually it's an interesting story. The day, it's online, it's really interesting. Somebody posted this. The last day of interviews for The Outsiders, the Coppola film, there was a group of us. It was Ralph and Patrick Swayze and Tom Cruise and Rob Lowe and what's his name? CJ
Thomas C. Howe.
Him and Ralph, and anyway, all of them, everybody was there. And we were going in and out, in and out, in and out all day long, different combos.
Yeah. To see how you look together and work together.
Anyway, Ralph was there. I was very close to getting a Karate Kid. So Dan, yes, the answer is yes.
Right. Okay. I can see that. All the things that were going on aside, you were still getting work, and the next.
All right. So then what happened was I sort of went. I took a kind of a step back for a minute after Virgin, and then I came back and I did in pretty quick succession. I did Friday the 13th, the final chapter, and then I think I got Torch Song Trilogy, which is a Tony Award-winning play with Harvey Fierstein. Which was a really big deal.
You were in the stage version of that, not the film.
The stage version, and at that time it had only been Fisher Stevens created the role, and then Matthew Broderick did it, and then John Cryer, and then me. So we were like the first four. So it was, I mean, it's such an honor to be part of that little group. And then right from Torch Song, I went into Mask. And then that was that little section of stuff.
Yeah, Torch Song Trilogy is an iconic play, also made into a film in 1988. I mean, we're talking. I'm going to see if I can get an original production photo. So you would have done that on Broadway.
No, I did the Los Angeles.
Oh,
premiere.
you
I did the LA. The first LA production of it and it was with Estelle Getty, who played
Yeah.
Harvey's mom and Harvey, and I have an amazing story from that. If you want to,
Yeah, please. Estelle Getty that's just like amazing. I didn't know you'd worked with her. My God.
And she was in Mask, so we were both in Torch Song and both in Mask.
Yeah, of course she was.
But anyway, so listen to this. So it was an incredible experience doing Torch Song, just incredible. And Harvey was just incredible. And on the last night, I had to leave Torch Song 1 week early to go start Mask. And on the last night, my last night of the show, you know, there was a standing ovation. I mean, there always was. Harvey was a genius. And, you know, the audience is cheering and cheering. And Harvey stopped the show and he said, Lawrence, he pulled me over and he said, you know, ladies and gentlemen, tonight is Lawrence's last night. He has to go and do Mask with Cher. And he said, I just want to say that Lawrence has been my favorite David I've ever had. David is the role of Harvey's son.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, you know, and we were walking off stage, right? And Estelle Getty grabs my hand and she says, Lawrence, she said, he's never done, she said, he's done this like 3 times. And Estelle had been with Torch Song since La Mama. I mean, so, you know, all the way when they were testing it in New York, whatever, 15 years ago. And she said, he's only done this like 3 times in all the runs. I don't know. It's always stuck with me. And I thought it was one of the most beautiful things anybody's ever done. And I saw Harvey 100 years later in Los Angeles at brunch, and I hadn't seen him in so long. And I went up to him and I was like, I just thanked him again for doing that. And I don't know. It's one of those beautiful moments that will stay with me forever.
Yeah, I've had a couple of moments like that, and I know exactly what you mean. They really mean something. Well, I don't want to spend too much time talking about Friday the 13th unless you've got a funny story about it, but I do want to talk about Mask.
Okay.
So Mask would be the first thing I saw you in.
Okay.
And one of my favorite scenes in Mask, which always really stuck with me, was the scene with you and Eric where you come and tell him you're going to be working at your uncle's place or something like that.
Yeah.
And Eric's like, what about Europe? What about Europe? And you're sort of trying to tell him what you're doing without saying, I'm not going to Europe. And he just keeps going, what about Europe? And then there's that scene where it's such a powerful connection because you're really his only friend of a similar age, his only really true friend, close friend, which is why your role always stuck in my head, because friends like that in life are quite rare. You know, God, don't I know that. And you know, of course, then the scene with Cher taking the pins off the board is just so powerful. Desert Phoenix, not the Jim Carrey Mask movie. This is the one with Cher in 1985, just to clarify. Yeah, that scene really stayed with me. Your character was called Ben, wasn't he? He was called Ben, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you got to work with Peter Bogdanovich. You got to work with Cher. I think this was Eric Stoltz wasn't a name before this movie. Of course, he was afterwards. Young Laura Dern as well. An incredible cast for the time. And it's just, I watched it. It's a movie I watch at least once every 3 years. And every time I watch it, it still holds up because the key themes of the story are just as relevant now as they were then. I'd just like to know the process for this film that you went through with Peter, what kind of rehearsals you had, if anything, and how you worked your friendship with Eric and so on. And of course, what it was like to work with Cher, I guess, is an obvious other question.
Yeah.
Just take us through some of that if you can.
Okay. I'll tell you one interesting thing that happened.
Sure.
So the day we were shooting that scene that you're talking about, when I tell Eric that I tell Rocky that I'm not going to go on the trip and that I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Earlier in the day, before we started shooting, there they are. Before we started shooting, you know, Eric and Laura and I were really very close. and I loved them. And I remember hanging out with Laura, and Laura and I walked into Eric's trailer, and Laura walked in first, and he was like, "Hi," and then I walked in, and he was like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" He's like, "Get the fuck out of my trailer, get out!" And I was like, "Oh my god!" And like I left, and I'm immediately like, was very upset. I didn't know what I'd done, and I felt like, what did I do? What did I do? I was really upset. I was like crying, and Laura comes out, and she's like, "Lawrence, he's doing the scene. He's like, he's already like doing Rocky, like upset with Ben." And I didn't really know that he was doing that, and I didn't even really believe it because I was so upset that he was so mad at me. And I was like, I mean, it sounds so silly now talking about it, but I was really upset. And so when we went and did the scene, he still hadn't talked to me. And he was a wonderful method actor, Eric. And I think that's a really good example of putting kind of a certain kind of thing into, I mean, some people may think it's not cool. As a young actor, I thought it was amazing, even though it was really painful.
But after was that your last day of filming with him, or did you have any other days after that?
I don't remember that.
Okay.
But the scene went on for a really long time. But I'll tell you one really fascinating thing, which is the way Peter shoots. I guess Peter was obviously one of the greatest directors in our time, history, whatever. He, I guess he'd had some conflicts over the years with studios and how it edits, how the cut of a movie. And so by this time, the way Peter worked is he would literally cut the movie in the can. And so what I mean by that is when a scene began, if he was doing a wide shot, he would action, and we would do 3 lines of the wide shot, and he would cut, and then he would move into a tighter 2, and he'd say action, and we'd pick up and do, like, let's say the next 10 lines in the 2, and he would cut, and then he would move in to do the coverage and the close-ups for maybe the rest of the scene. So you see what he's doing is he's taking away any possibility of the studio doing a different cut than what Peter wants. I'd never seen anything like that prior nor since.
I could see exactly what he was assembling the edit in his head, probably had it storyboarded to a degree and notes and things, just getting the shots that would work for that so that the scenes wouldn't work any other way. So effectively he was having control over the finished product. That's pretty clever.
100%. Yeah.
Dennis Berkeley here was one of the actors you must have bonded with, because you were part of the biker gang, so you all had a few scenes together.
Oh, I will tell you a funny story about Sam.
Elliott. And Sam Elliott, who's Mr. Sexy Voice.
This has nothing to do with Sam, but I'll just be honest again.
Sure.
So, like, Sam, I'm sure was a very nice man, but I really did not like Sam because, again, I was this young and inside gay man, right? And Sam, look at Sam. I mean, he's just the epitome of archetypal, stereotypical, hetero masculine. And I just thought, and I never thought.
I don't know, with that tash in the 1970s, it's. I mean, I don't know about that. The look.
I know. Yeah, no.
And generally, the type of roles he plays, it's very masculine cowboy.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from.
No, so I just remember feeling sort of, but that's my own inner sort of journey, feeling so other than that kind of thing.
But I mean, it was a positive experience working on the film.
Beyond imaginable, amazing experience. Just to be surrounded by people like that, and I actually became friendly with Cher, which was such a thrill and kind of a surprise.
Yeah, because she can be very guarded, is what I've heard.
And
understandably so.
Yeah, I mean, geez.
So,
she is very justifiably guarded, and then when she's not, it's just just loveliness. And I mean, I remember I went to the movies a few times with her, which I just thought was just the coolest thing in the entire world. You know, I don't
Did
know
you
why
have to like do the hat and dark glasses, and she would head down and make sure she didn't get spotted in the audience, kind of thing? Yeah.
I do
So
remember back then, it doesn't matter.
no, go on, please.
I remember back that, if you remember that era, it was right when like films about people my age then, these young people were happening. It was, and so every year there were like 3 or 4 movies that every young actor in Hollywood wanted. Like there were always like 4 that everybody. It was what was the movie that what's his name did? Oliver Stone about The Doors. The Doors.
Oh, The Doors, and you had Platoon before that.
That and that, it was there were always like four of them, and I just remember Mask was one of them that year. And it was just such a thrill getting that movie with like Laura Dern and Eric Stoltz, and just being part of these amazing young actors that were kind of, happening in our industry at that time.
Do you remember how many times you had to go in and read for the part with Peter?
Yeah, I do actually. I don't know why I'm remembering all this.
It's all right. I have that effect on people. Don't worry.
No, it is weird. It was at Universal, and wait. I want to tell you something. So I remember there was like a final casting up in the tower. The big tower at Universal where the executives are, and I don't remember who the casting director was, but I remember we were doing a scene. I don't fucking remember what I did, but I did something really bold, like shockingly bold in the room. And they were like, and those kinds of things, they either play really well and maybe you end up getting the part, or boy, do they not.
Yeah, but they can backfire really badly. It's a proper risk. Yeah.
But it worked. And I do remember I had to do like a screen test kind of thing with Eric. And it was I remember it was in the Valley, and we were taken up to somebody's house or something. I don't remember. It was just like to see if me and Eric had chemistry. And it was so weird. I had seen a yo-yo the day before, and I'm not a yo-yo guy. Like I just don't like yo-yo. But I saw the yo-yo and I'm like, oh, I gotta take that yo-yo. And the next day when I went for the thing, I had Ben pull out the character Ben pull out the yo-yo, and it just totally worked with me and Eric playing this silly little yo-yo.
Was when you did the screen test with him, was he in the makeup for the screen test?
I don't think so. No.
So the casting directors on Mask, by the way, there were 2 of them. One was Jackie Birch, and the other one was Michael Chinich.
Jackie Birch. She was my I love Jackie Birch. She was so good to me for many years.
I had a question earlier regarding the shooting of Mask, because Wayne Byrne, who's watching, who's a biographer of many books on different people's careers, he's been on my channel a couple of times, and he did the biography of film director Walter Hill, which is sitting on the shelf behind me. He said earlier, "Hi Lance and Lawrence, great story about Richard's advice. Can Lawrence tell us any of the memories of working with the great director of photography, Laszlo Kovacs, on Mask, and anything that made him so aesthetically unique? Do you remember anything about the DOP at all on Mask? I know it's not usually what the actors are looking at, but
no, that's not true, Lance. Let me just say about what you said about the camera, that there's nothing actually more intimate than the relationship. If you love your DP, if you can actually are lucky enough to create a relationship with him, because even though of course it's the relationship between the actor and the director 100%, but if you really develop a relationship with a DP, it's the DP that's there. Like at least back then people still looked in the the actual eye of the camera. And Laszlo, I remember more, to be honest, about Lajos Koltai, who did Gabby, more than Laszlo Kovacs. I mean, obviously Laszlo was great, but I had more of a real relationship with Lajos.
Right. Well, I mean, do you remember, for example, waiting for setups and stuff? Was it a really long process in terms of that for Mask, or was the turnover pretty quick?
I think that they were not so quick. It was a pretty big movie, you know.
Yeah.
I think setups, they were like real setups, like, you know, lighting and bikes coming in and out, and yeah, it was a real movie. So,
Well, let me jump onto and the band played
actually,
on.
I'm gonna run to pee.
Oh, that's fine. Please do. I will fill in for a second, no problem. So let me do that. So we're going to be moving on from Masked and the band played on. And if you haven't seen this movie, you absolutely should watch it. It's a true story. It's absolutely heartbreaking. It's got one of the biggest cast lineups you will have ever seen. The entire movie is available on YouTube to watch for free. I'm going to get that link and drop it in the chat. It's not the best quality. I think there's probably more than one version of it available to watch on YouTube. But there's one link for it. That'll get you to other links for it. I think they've made it widely available for free for educational purposes. But it's the true story of how the HIV virus broke out in America. Told primarily from the point of view of the team of doctors who are trying to stop it, who are working out of California. They're working out of the Center of Disease Control, led by, among other people, Matthew Modine. Richard Masur is in there as well. Absolutely outstanding cast. So I'm just bringing an introduction into this film, and I'm probably one of the few people in the UK that saw this movie at the cinema. I specifically went to watch it at the cinema. I'd not long lost my cousin to this, to the terrible epidemic as it was at that time. Thankfully, no longer. And I felt kind of morally obligated to go and educate myself in a way. Now, this is directed by Roger Spottiswoode. You've got Ian McKellen in there. There's also Phil Collins. There's some of the bigger names in the cast in this particular shot. But this has a very impressive cast list, and my memory is that everybody agreed to work for scale on this production so that they could get that cast to give the movie maximum exposure. Do you want to just tell us? My friend Donald Logue is in this as well. He plays Bobby Campbell.
Yeah.
And Donald and I actually met because of this film. That's how we met each other, because of this movie. Just talk us through how you came to be involved, what the casting process was like, and how you came to be cast as Chip. And we saw that scene earlier before we started.
Yeah, this is obviously an incredible project, which I'm so honored to be a part of. And what you said is true. Every single name in Hollywood that was offered the movie said yes. Richard Gere, Susie Kurtz, Angelica Houston, Lily Tomlin. I mean, everybody just said yes, trying to get this thing made because it was considered unmakeable, the subject matter. Plus trying to turn Randy Schultz's book, which was not sort of novelistic, but was more almost scientifically sort of driven to get it made. And obviously the screenwriters did a brilliant job. So anyway, when I first started auditioning for it, it was not for the role of Chip. It was for one of the lead roles. I don't remember the names, but it was for Matthew's role, Matthew Modine, for a few other roles. And Roger took a real liking to me. Roger. I love Roger Spottiswoode.
Yeah, great director.
Yeah. And so what happened is, because what we just talked about, HBO really needed stars, very understandably. Every role that I that Roger would say, "But yeah, I'd love you to play this." Then like Matthew would sign on, and so they'd move me to this, and then I don't know, somebody else would sign on, and until all of the big roles that he wanted me for were taken by big names.
Yeah.
And then, so finally, my agents called me and he said, "Okay, Roger said you can have your choice of these roles. Any of them, you can have." And I read them, and there were some that were bigger than Chip. And I read the scene of Chip, and I was just like, "Oh, fuck! This is."
I mean, it's. What were the other roles that you could have had, just out of interest?
Honestly, I don't remember.
Okay.
I mean, I'd have to go back and really look at them.
Yeah.
But when I read Chip, I knew that was the one. And yeah. And Roger also directed and cast me in the lead in that TV series I did, Prince Street.
Right.
Yeah, that was Roger.
Did that come after this?
Oh yeah.
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 So I mean, you were in and out of this pretty quickly for a day. I guess I don't want to leave this here because there's more I want to say about this film because it's such an important movie. I mean, I feel this film should be shown in like every school everywhere in the world as a mandatory thing. And I could add a couple of other movies to that list, but when it came out, one of the things that really annoyed me were the reviews. It got these very lukewarm reviews, and I remember reading the review, and my expectations when I went to see it was, oh, this is going to be a bit naff. Then there's all these famous people in it, but they're saying it's rubbish. The amazing David Clennon and Swoosie Kurtz there, and when I came out of the cinema, I was crying, and I was like, what was that reviewer talking about? This film is so important, and these people had a moral obligation, in my view, to push it to the max. Do you think that was a political decision of the time because of the controversy of the nature of the topic?
Yeah, homophobia.
Yeah, and
homophobia, which still runs quite healthily among us all in the entertainment industry. So,
I mean, maybe it's a good time to ask you, you've been in the industry a long time. There have been a lot of changes. There's also been a lot of things that have come out about stuff that went on in the industry. And, it can be a really toxic place that will eat you up. I mean, I've had my own bad experiences. Looking back now, how do you think it's changed for the better in current times, and how hasn't it changed? How could it be improved?
Well, just one more thing about and the band played on.
Please.
Even though it was a small scene, I was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. It was me, Ian McKellen, Richard Gere. I don't remember who else, but I mean, it was just amazing. The reason it was so amazing was because everybody in that category was famous, except for me.
Right.
And what was so cool about it was truly a nomination based on just the work, because nobody was nominating me because I was Richard Gere, and not that Richard Gere wasn't brilliant in the movie, he is, but no. I mean, it was just like, who is this dude? So I don't know. It meant so much to me for that reason.
Was that a Golden Globe or?
No, if you remember at that time, Lance, for cable movies, they had Cable Ace Awards.
That's right. Yes.
So they were like the Emmy of cable movie. They divided it back then.
Yeah, no, I do remember it. Well, rightly so. Glad you were nominated, because I mean, you watch this scene today, and I've shown this scene to actors. I've had, because I work as an acting coach, one of my other jobs, and if people are kind of like playing any kind of hospital, terminally ill type character, I always point them to this scene, and I'm like, watch this scene, and the band played on. You know, and they'll always come back to me and go, yeah, that was good advice. Usually they watch the whole film. It's my way of tricking them into watching the whole movie. But it is just, it's an acting masterclass watching this scene. I think it's amazing, and great that you had the guiding hand of Richard Masur there as well. So so moving on to my question, I mean, in terms of changes in the industry as opposed to then and now, what do you think's better? What do you think's worse? What's stayed the same?
I mean, I agree with you, certainly. First of all, I've stepped out of the industry, or have stepped for a bit. So I haven't been in an integrative way experiencing the changes. I mean, obviously I see the changes, and yeah, it's a different world. I mean, you know, we talk about being gay, and it's not an end of the conversation. And you know, we embrace diversity and inclusivity, and there are gay characters, which is wonderful. And you have straight actors wearing skirts on the runway and nail polish. You know, it's just it is a different world, and I definitely don't believe that it's like the way it was, that if you were gay, it's the end of your career.
Right. What about how do you feel about intimacy coordinators? Do you think that's a good thing, or do you think that stifles the energy?
I think it's a wonderful thing, and I don't think it stifles the energy at all. I don't think anybody doesn't want to be sexual and exciting in a sex scene, and let it be provocative and do what the characters need for it to do. And I think the actors are absolutely willing to do that. And I think having somebody there as a witness, as a witness, is absolutely a phenomenal thing in creating a safe space. I do want to wait. I just want to say something interesting about our industry and homophobia. And
sure.
So
Please.
I'll ask you a question.
Yeah.
Name one male movie star, a real movie star, who's gay and out. One. Now,
the one that immediately springs to my head is I can't picture the guy's name. It'll come to me. But he's not, the guy I'm thinking of is not, I would put him sort of on that shelf just below A-list. I wouldn't say he's A-list. And I'm trying to, God, why can't I remember the name? And I seem to recall when he came out, everybody was like, yeah, so what? You know, everyone kind of knew. And it was a bit like when George Michael came out, it was like, yeah, and
right.
I mean, which didn't hurt his career. I think it
I'm just saying the idea that, so you're having that much difficulty coming up with one is kind of my point.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get what you're saying. It's yeah.
So we yes, the world, it's better, and you know, thank the heavens, and I love that, and I would love it if we could actually have an actual gay movie star. I'd love it if in the I'm a huge avid tennis player and fan. There's not one out tennis player, male tennis player in the top 50 that's out. Not one. So I'm not trying to piss on anybody's parade here.
No, but I hear what you're saying.
Just sort of, you know, I just think it's also, let us remember that this societal sort of conversation and healing is not done. We're not living in a post, like we had, you know, after Obama, we believed for men we were living in a post-race America. Well, how has that turned out? Has that gone well?
Yeah.
And I can assure you, we're not living in a post-gay America. My last partner and I, you know, when we would go to a Midwest state, we weren't comfortable holding hands while walking down the street. I didn't feel safe. So I don't know. I'm not trying to be a dark cloud. I'm just saying, if we're going to have this conversation, let's be honest about it, and I am here to celebrate for sure the strides, 100%. But let's also not pretend that,
Did you before we start to wrap up, and I'll be absolutely crucified if I don't briefly mention your career with the Star Trek franchise, so I will do that quickly. But did you see and watch the Laramie Project?
What is that again?
The Laramie Project.
Oh,
started off as a play, but became.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
About the kid that was murdered.
Matthew.
Matthew. It was a homophobic hate crime.
Yeah, yeah.
It took place in the Midwest, which is what made me think of it when you just said that. And God, what a powerful piece to have come out of something truly awful.
I mean,
that's. At the minute, there's a lot of social and political messaging in a lot of mainstream entertainment. There's a lot of criticism around, do we need, people? Do we need a gay kiss in Star Wars? This kind of thing. And I personally don't care. I just want to see a good Star Wars movie. I don't really care. I just want to see a good Star Wars.
Wait, Lance, wait. The idea that the phrasing of the question, do we need a gay kiss in Star Wars, is the point that we need a gay kiss in Star Wars. Because when it's still an issue that there is a gay kiss in Star Wars, means that we need one. Because that means that having a gay kiss is still like, oh my God. So
yeah, I'm sorry, I probably did not articulate that very well. Let me rephrase slightly. One of the things that was, I don't want to get into naming specific shows, but one show that's come under a lot of criticism recently has been that the plot, the narrative of the story has taken second place to social messaging. And I'm not talking about kissing. I'm just talking about general social messaging. And I'm a script writer. I'm all about narrative and plot and story and pace and good dialogue and all the rest of it. And in the case of this particular piece of television, I have to agree. It's some of the worst writing I've ever seen.
Are you going to tell me what it is?
I'll tell you off camera.
Okay.
I try to keep things very positive on my channel. I'm not here to bash shows. Okay. And it's obviously, if I schedule something to review and I'm reviewing it right after it's dropped, and unfortunately it's awful television, I won't lie. I'll say so, but I generally try to. So I think absolutely your point is totally valid, but I'm trying to find a middle ground, particularly with certain IPs where, story is king, is what I've always been taught as a writer. Story is king. Why are these things happening in the scene? Why do they happen? Who are they happening to? What does it mean? And, what's the outcome of this for the next scene and so on? And I found that like all of these rules just kind of went out the window for this particular thing. And I was thinking, what are these people doing with this? This is not helpful for anyone. And I just wondered, I've got a lot of gay friends, and I've got a lot of gay friends that don't like, for example, the new Doctor Who. They just don't like it. They just don't think it's like Doctor Who, really. So I just wondered if you had a view on what you think the balance should be between, okay, a lot of new young writers are coming into Hollywood and so on, and they've all got their messages and things that they want to tell. What's the balance between telling something like that, implementing it into a show, particularly an existing IP, and telling a good story? How do you get that balance right? Difficult.
What does IP mean?
So an IP, a big existing IP is something like, the Star Wars franchise, or one of the big established properties, international properties.
So I would say that I agree with you that I think narrative is predominant. I think if one's intention in creating is messaging, that the creator is off, because we're not here to do messaging. We're here to create great narrative. But Lance, if a white hetero middle-aged dude is suddenly doing a story about a homeless black kid and he's writing it, that could be like messaging, because he's trying to show the plight of a homeless black kid in sort of the social lack of social welfare support system in America, right? So that's messaging. If you have a young black director who is writing of their childhood and certain struggles that they experience, now it's not messaging, it's narrative that's coming with that message, but it's not a message. It's the truth of that narrative. So I think it's like, who's creating, who's getting the opportunities to create. Something that comes from me is my narrative. If that was coming from you, it's you trying to message something. So I think that's one point. And I think the other point is that once we are all, and this is for African Americans and gay people and Asian people and all different kinds of people, once everybody is actually more integrated and genuinely inclusive, then messaging is no longer necessary. I mean, then I think just, sort of organic, integrative kind of storytelling takes place. I'll tell you one last thing, but I don't know if you want to get into this. I never talk online, social media politically, or so. I just don't, because
I only speak about what you're comfortable with, but nothing's going to change our friendship. So you're all good.
No. I was going to say that I don't like the chaos of it, but I made a comment about
it can be very toxic. It can be.
There's this actor who forget it.
No, go on.
No, there's this actor. He's identifies as heterosexual, and he keeps playing these large gay roles. And this, I think, is abominable. I mean, I think it's utterly horrible. And people were like, "Acting is acting." I'm like, no, wait a second. Acting is acting when people have representation. If the minority has representation and all is on an equal playing field, sure, acting is acting. And then anybody can play anything. But until...
But you wouldn't suggest that gay actors can't play straight characters, no?
And this is the typical thing that people will say. And
I'm just asking.
No, and my answer is, of course, I would not suggest that. And what I'm saying is that once gay actors are no longer deprived so much of regular hetero different kinds of roles, until that rip has been healed, then let straight actors play gay roles. But for now, maybe just for a couple of years, just a few years past somebody being able to wear nail polish on a runway, let gay actors play gay roles for a little while. Let gay actors bring their story to the screen for a little while before the straight actors.
I just want to give you a scenario picking up on that. Let's say I'm casting a film.
Yeah.
Let's say one of the parts is a gay character, but let's say that the role is not integrally gay to the story, but the character is gay. This is a supporting part, right? And I see my casting director has lined up 10 actors for me to see. I'm not familiar with any of these actors because we've decided we're going to go with an unknown. I see them perform the scene. I maybe get them to perform with the lead to see chemistry with the lead. At the end of the day, purely as a director who's seen 10 people come in the room, should my number one priority not be simply who of those 10 people is best for that part that I've just seen that day?
So these are unknown actors?
Yeah, let's say that they're 10 unknown actors. I'm not aware of their sexuality. It's a supporting role in a feature film, which is a character that happens to be gay. It's not a gay movie as such. This is a gay character. Am I looking? Is it important for me as the director to know which of them are gay or which of them are straight, or is it just important for me to know that which is the best actor?
Probably which is the best actor.
Right. Okay. I mean, I'll give you a different scenario. If I was doing let's say a biopic about Bobby Campbell, which is the role that my friend Donald Logue played in and the band played on. And this is a character who lived through and died in the AIDS epidemic. And I was casting 10 actors for that role. And I would have a biog of Bobby Campbell's background, what his experiences were growing up and so on, because that would be important for me to know that as the director directing this biopic. I would also then probably, as part of the audition process, I'd probably want to, let's say 10 actors came up for the part, regardless of their sexuality. I would want to hear what those actors' experiences were growing up. And then I think for a role like that, going through a similar gay experience as that character had, I think would probably be quite important for the actor to have experienced, to bring something to that role that feels authentic. That would be my take on that. Is that fair?
No, I do think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I recently signed with a management company, and they told me that there are producers and casting directors that say it's an LGBTQ role, and we want somebody who identifies.
Yeah, that's quite
community.
common.
So what I'm saying is it's out there.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to be like subtly trying to figure out somebody's orientation. I mean, you ask. I mean, when people say it's just acting, it's just. By the way, we are going off on this. I don't even know if this is appropriate for this thing, but this conversation. But when people say, "Oh, it's just acting," it's just acting. It's just acting. So I ask you, is that okay then for my next role that I'm playing, an Asian American? I mean, it is just acting. Yeah. So I mean, I'm a little unaware myself of the difference.
Yeah, I mean, we get into that realm, which is really well sent up in that movie Tropic Thunder, where you've got the character that Robert Downey Jr. is playing, blacks up for a role to try and get an award and act it, no, it's funny. And he's done all these other roles which were completely inappropriate for him. I thought they attacked that argument really well. Well, look, before we wrap up, because I've already kept you on quite a while. One of my collaborators on my channel is a lovely woman called Jill, who has a fantastic channel which is all things Star Trek. And of course, you're lucky enough to have been in 2 Star Trek shows. You've been in Star Trek Enterprise in 2001, and prior to that in the 90s, I think you did an episode of Deep Space Nine as well, if I remember rightly.
Yes, I did.
I appreciate that these were quite a while ago. But do you have a story from working on either of those shows? And again, you're coming into a very well-oiled machine as a guest actor. What was that experience like? Were the cast welcoming? Was it did they make it easy? I mean, just how was the experience of being part of the Star Trek franchise? And I dare say you get asked for autographs just for being in these 2 shows and playing these 2 characters.
Yeah. Enterprise was great. I played I think I ran a cargo ship on that one. LeVar Burton was the director.
Who played Geordie LaForge in Next Gen.
Yeah, so he was absolutely fantastic. And I remember
I've heard he's really nice. I've heard really nice things about him.
Just incredible. I'll tell you a funny story. Was the opening shot, I believe it's the opening shot, my character is supposed to something about space or something, and he's supposed to throw this football like really, really far because of lack of gravity or something. So LeVar was like, okay, this is before we're shooting. He was like, let me see you throw the football. So I threw the football, and he was like, why don't you and I go outside for a few minutes? So I was never good at football, Lance. That wasn't my jam when I was a little boy. So there I am on the Paramount back lot with LeVar Burton and him teaching me how to throw a football. I thought that was funny.
Was
And,
was it supposed to be that you could throw it really far because there was like gravity or something like
Yeah,
that? Right. Okay.
but it had to at least start with me, you know, knowing,
Looking like you could throw a ball properly.
yeah. So that was good. And then I remember that character was maybe gonna come on as a regular or a co-regular or whatever, because it ends with what's his name, who is the star of that show?
That was Scott
Bakula. Scott Bakula.
Captain of Enterprise. Yeah.
Yeah, his character asks my character if I want to leave the cargo ship and come work on Enterprise. And during shooting, I tried to get them to change the lines where my character said, "Yes, I would love to come on to Enterprise." You know, meaning I would. Anyway, what?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, did that appeal at the time to be a regular on a show like that?
Oh yeah, I think it would have been totally cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Deep Space Nine was before this. They had a very, very impressive set for DS9. It was huge. Really groundbreaking show. Probably my favorite Star Trek show of all time, I think.
Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
I had a little I forgot what it was called, the little thing. Like a little,
Yura Bajoran. So you had Yura Bajoran. Yeah. So you had the
there was this big green screen behind me, and I was making the clouds appear. it was a hoot. You know, I want to just say something about like talking about the political stuff about gay, and I mean, I know we're just talking to nobody, but I'm, you know, just,
well, there's 5 people watching, so we're not just talking.
No, I just mean to, you know, to talk about such personal things. You know,
it's entirely whatever you feel comfortable with. It's entirely up to you.
No, I also come to it from a very sort of experientially personal place. I was a young actor in a very, very homophobic industry, and you know, I experienced a lot of really, really painful things, and I'm not blaming anybody. I you know, it was my choice to be an actor, and I'm just saying that it was a challenging place to be as a young man, to be going through that. And so, you know, I have a lot of strong opinions still about things. And I know that part of that is fueled by my own sort of past kind of experiences. So I don't know if I necessarily see everything with 100% clarity because of my own kind of experience and of so many decades of having to, you know, lie and you know. So
okay, well, this has been absolutely fantastic, and I really appreciate you talking quite candidly on a number of issues. And I always like it's rare that I get asked a question in an interview, but I don't mind. And you know, and I like discussing challenging topics because we live in a very, very divided society right now. We've just had riots in the UK, and you know, we've also had a number of very peaceful demonstrations, thank God, more recently. And but you know, you look around and there's just so much conflict everywhere, and just it's like one of the things that you said earlier that really resonated with me is these things aren't going to change until, you know, we all kind of harmonize a bit and come together and put sort of cultural and other differences aside and try and look forward. And I always thought aliens would have arrived on Earth by now, and I have a very strong opinion as to why they haven't. They've had a look and they went, yeah, I don't want to hang around this place. We don't want to bring these people, give these people technology, bring them out into the universe.
Oh no, you bet your ass. They've been here and they're like, oh
yeah,
no, ain't tangling with that group. Let them.
Our planet's an experiment that went a bit wrong, I think.
Let them either figure it out or take themselves out. You know, one or the other. You know, it's amazing how watching the world and the choices that we make or don't make as a society. and how, you know, if you try to, sometimes, you know, I look at the climate change that's going on. I find
Yeah.
that so fascinating, where it's like, from watching it over here, watching people, you know, saying, "Oh wow, look, they have the information. They know exactly what they're doing," and it's like, look how they keep continuing to just go over the edge. It's like doing drugs, like with fentanyl. It's like, you know, it's like, you know, there's a lot of fentanyl out there, and yet you just can't stop. And this is not a happy way to end this show, but
No,
um,
I hear
it's
you.
just a fascinating thing to not be able to make a higher choice, even when you know what the lower choice can probably is going to bring.
Well, unfortunately, you know, money talks, and so many people are still primarily motivated by that, and indeed the division of the world's resources. But oh my God, that's a whole other topic.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's all right, Lawrence. This has been fantastic. I know you're sort of, you know, you just got yourself a new manager. You're kind of dipping your toe back in. What's the plan for the future with you?
Um, well, honestly, yeah. So I do. I sort of am very in a surrendered place. You know, I I I uh, I love acting. I love creating. I really do. I think it's beautiful. And I also know, though, that I don't need anything. I've
Right.
reached a place in my life where there's nothing that I need to be okay, and certainly not success in that industry.
Well, it's good to know you'll have a bed for me if I ever pop over to LA on that basis.
I do. I
um,
do.
uh, maybe, I mean, have you thought about doing Talk Strong Trilogy again, but you doing the Harvey Feinstein role?
No,
I mean, your physique probably isn't well suited to the
no, I
character.
feel like that's too dated. I actually do have a theater piece idea, which I'm probably not going to say here, that I really, really want to do. That I think it's it's a hetero, as written, heterosexual characters, and I saw it in recently in at a production being done, and I was like, oh my god, the theme of this piece would be so much even more palpable if it was done with two men. So anyway, I'm looking into doing that. Plus, you know, I'm in the actor's studio out here in Los Angeles when I feel like going and doing some, you know, just some work just for the sake of doing some work. So I can do that. I think, you know, I'm a writer.
Yeah.
I'm writing something. Plus, let's just ride my bicycle.
We'll see. You never know. The chance for us to work together may yet come. Lawrence, thank you so much for giving me an hour and a half of your time.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed this interview, and I really appreciate you being very candid, honest, and forthright with your views and opinions. That's exactly what I want on here. I don't want people holding back. You've had a very diverse and I would say probably quite challenging obstacle course of a career in your life, and experienced many different things, worked with some wonderful directors and actors, but I dare say there have been some other experiences that you haven't spoken about, but I really do appreciate you coming on and talking to me about them. This has been absolutely fantastic, and thank you everyone for your comments. I appreciate that Wayne Byrne, the resident biographer, has been watching all the way through, and I need to thank Wayne because Wayne has just managed to book me an interview with the director Tom DeCillo, who did Living in Oblivion. So I'll be interviewing Tom at some point this year, and I've got producer Gail Ann Hurd coming on the channel as well. In fact, Lawrence, you were the first person I told when I got that news, because I just literally just hung up a call from you when I got that news, and yeah, it's so wonderful.
I mean, one thing to talk to her about, seriously, she was one of the first like female badass, you know, producers and directors that, I mean,
Yeah,
imagine,
I'd say the first badass female producer was probably Deborah Hill, and then Gail.
right.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
imagine what those ladies went through. My goodness.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna be asking her less questions about kind of, you know, how did you do this shot in Terminator, and more that kind of thing. I want to hear about her journey as a producer, and again, how it is now and then, and what she likes to bring to a film or a show as a producer. And but yeah, she's very aware of actors. Every actor that I mentioned to her in a conversation, she knew exactly who they were. She knew exactly what they'd done, even if she hadn't worked with them. So trust me when I say Gail will know everything that you've done. She will. She will. She will. And I'm sure she'll probably watch this because she watches my channel. So thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. That's it from me. I will be back again. Where are we now? We're on a Thursday, aren't we? I'll be back on Tuesday with the Nielsen ratings, and possibly there might be some nonsensical gaming streams between now and then. Thanks so much to Lawrence for coming on and giving me so much of his time. Thanks everyone for your comments and so forth. Lots more interviews to come. I'm sure we'll have Lawrence back at some point as well. Don't forget what I always tell you on the end of many of my streams. We live in quite difficult times. A lot of people are going through quite serious challenges. A lot of people are experiencing poverty, financial difficulty, mental health challenges, which often come out as a result of those things. If you have a friend that you haven't spoken to in quite a while and you're maybe concerned about how they're doing, don't just send them a text. Maybe pick up the phone and give them a call. The chances are, I know that calling people is deemed to be very old-fashioned these days and doesn't seem to happen very often. But I think somebody who's going through something will appreciate a phone call from you. So always remember to pick up the phone, tell the people that you care about that you love them. And I'll see you again real soon.